We're now going to move to the budget review for the financial year 2016. Mr. Giuliano.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. It's already opened. Thank you. It is that time of year for us to begin having our budget discussions, and so I wanted to just go over a few items before getting into the first area of discussion. I'd like to just go into some of the factors that will definitely have an impact on the bottom line. In revenue, state aid. It is much too early to know what state aid will be for next year. The governor will not have the state budget message, will not provide the state budget message until February 24th, and the state aid information to school districts will not be released until 2 days later. So we are currently operating off of an assumption that state aid will remain the same as it is for the current year. That can change, and we won't know what that ultimate impact will be until the end of February. We are, as everyone knows, constrained by a 2% cap in terms of tax increase. So that is a further constraint on the extent to which the budget may grow. And lastly, on the resources side of the ledger is budgeted fund balance, and that represents the amount of funds that we would anticipate to remain unspent from the current year that would go toward the following year's budget. We have a substantive amount of fund balance that was obligated for the current year. We have a gap to bridge moving forward into next year, at least my initial projections. So this is a little bit of a tenuous issue, a little too early to represent at this time, but it is a factor that needs to weigh into the overall budget. On the expenditure side, three major areas, and one is health benefit costs. Certainly everyone is aware of the cost of health benefits, and that nationally the costs continue to rise. We have done a very good job in the district in terms of controlling what that rate increase has been from year to year. However, we don't have enough data as of this time frame to be able to reasonably project what that increase might be for the following year. So at this point, I'm taking a conservative position with regard to health benefit costs, and certainly that plays into the overall bottom line estimates that I'm working from. And you'll notice I'm just talking in terms of general aspects. I'm not giving specific numbers on these because it is too preliminary, and I don't want there to be any potential to lock onto a number that may change and will likely change as we proceed through the process. Collective bargaining, we are certainly will have an impact on budget. Employee salaries are the largest component of our budget, and we are in the midst of collective bargaining, and the outcome of those negotiations will certainly have an effect on where the bottom line falls out. And lastly, charter school costs. And while I say lastly, this is the single area that, speaking for myself, and I'm sure for the rest of the board and administration, is of significant concern to me. I can project reasonably what those other expenditure areas may be. This last item, charter school costs, concerns me greatly. There's currently an application pending before the Commissioner of Education requesting that the Hatikva Charter School be permitted to increase its enrollment in its current grade configuration, or increase its enrollment with expanding its grade configuration from a K to 5 to a K through 8 school. We've calculated that impact upon East Brunswick School District to be approximately $1 million if those proposals are approved by the Commissioner of Education. That is substantive. We currently budget approximately $2.4 million in payment for the Hatikva Charter School. That comes directly out of the resources of the East Brunswick Public School budget. An additional $1 million equates to almost half of the amount that we would be permitted to increase our budget for next year, which ultimately would affect what we can do in terms of providing programs to the students who are enrolled in the East Brunswick schools. That's a significant concern. If we are faced with that type of an increase in cost, we will be looking at major cuts in the district. And I need for the board, which I know is already aware, but also for the community to be aware of this, and that is certainly one of the most important issues that I see us having to deal with as these weeks and next couple of months move forward. So, having said that, move on to the next slide. Dates to note. Beginning tonight, we will be having budget presentations, and the board will have an opportunity to discuss on various aspects of the budget. This will continue through February 5th and 19th. As I mentioned earlier, the governor's budget address is scheduled for February 24th, and state aid data will be released February 26th. That is also the date by which I would expect we will know what impact any charter school budget item will have on our budget. Next, continuing on with the dates, budget presentations will continue March 5th, 12th, and 19th, with a tentative budget adoption scheduled for March 19th. The public hearing will be held on April 30th, and then by May 7th, the board will be adopting a final budget. So having said all of that in as brief a manner as I can, we will move into the first budget discussion, budget presentation, and this is for the curriculum department. Dr. Ogden.
Okay, this is the most important part of the budget, obviously.
Absolutely.
Instruction and what happens in the schools. Just a quick review. The curriculum budget's a little different than many of the others that have almost all continuing activities. They may increase in the amount of resources needed, but they're pretty much the same. Maintenance of the building, this kind of maintenance of the building. In the curriculum area, the major areas in that tend to change each year because it includes things like textbooks. So obviously, if you buy a new algebra book one year, you don't buy an algebra book the next year. And when we buy a book, it may be for 600 or 700 students, large classes. So that adjustment in terms of the budget each year. Overall, this proposed budget is increasing 1.7%. Which isn't a great deal, but this budget can fluctuate from year to year. It amounts to about $104 per student in the district. I'd just like to highlight some of the requests or new items that are in this tentative budget. To give you an idea of some of the variety of those items. Replacement of musical keyboards at the high school. We have a keyboarding program, a piano keyboarding program. They're 5 or 6 years old. They're used 9 periods a day. You can imagine those are the kinds of things that need to be replaced. We use the Columbia Literacy Program, and part of that is Pontus and Pinnell's Literacy Intervention Program, which is involved in kits for those students that are having difficulties in language arts. Kits for Hammersholt and Churchill are involved in that. anew, and our T&E committee that looked at this one is very excited about a new program that will be part of the Columbia program called Foundations for K2, which is a more structured word study program and phonics program. And another part of that for grade 3 is a handwriting program, which has been requested by many parents across the district. Just to highlight a couple of others, some are very small. AP German books, that's only 15 books. Honors Biology books, which will involve hundreds of books. These are all books that are more than 10 years old. And AP and Honors Statistics books. Those are the major book adoptions. And Pasco Interface Science Equipment for Churchill. We're constantly trying to get more hands-on and technology-based programs involved in our science. And then there are, a lot of little items in the budget.
Thank you, Dr. Ogden. Any questions? Todd?
Yes, I have a question. Dr. Ogden, besides just wear and tear, what are really some of the drawbacks of having textbooks that are 10 years old plus?
Well, textbooks, the more modern ones,
Right.
and some of these go back, they're more like 13 years old. The newer books, aside from the way material is presented, also are heavily supported with technology, so that the books, as they age, there's also additional material that the publishers are putting out to keep those current. Some of the books even have tutorial sections that students can use at home. In most cases, the textbook is also available online to the student. They get a password for that so that they can use it online rather than carrying book back and forth, though many students do. And a lot of support materials that come with the more modern book, particularly in the area of science.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Kevin?
I just want to say that, thank you, Dr. Ogden. 1.7% of a $150 million budget for curriculum, that sounds like you're in a conservative arena. And I hope we find more money when the Activa charter doesn't fly, so that money can be allocated to curriculum, because you mentioned briefly about technology-based education, and I think we're going in a new direction in that arena for our students, and I hope that Mr. Juliana finds even more money for you. But 1.7 is a credit to
That's the
your fiscal
increase.
responsibility. Really appreciate that.
And I would like to clarify on that 1.7%. It is not 1.7% of the entire school district budget. It is 1.7% of the curriculum supervisors' budgets, which 1.7% in this case represents just over $14,000. So in a $143 million budget projected for next year, it's de minimis.
Any questions? Mrs. Becker?
Dr. Ogden, I wanted to ask you a question about the cognitive tutor software. It's page 17 of 34, you're following in the budget reports. We've often discussed as a board a desire to support those students who are falling through the cracks. I often hear from parents, we put so much in place to support our highest achieving students. What are we doing for the kids who are struggling? And it seems to me that this is a very good support mechanism for that, but I wanted to make sure I understood exactly what we're purchasing.
Okay, we do have a very comprehensive basic skills program
Right.
with specialists in each school that deals. This is kind of a unique program, and it relates to the one below. During the summer, we have an online interactive program with those students that are deficient in basic skills in language arts and math, K6 or K7, depending on the area. And the RISE program that's here is the software that provides leveled books and reading support to those students and allows for individualized prescriptions during the summer for reading. We have about 200 students that are in that program. And there's a comparable down below, IXL program, which is the software for the math side of that. We also use that software during the school year with some students that are in more intensive basic skills needs and in Title I schools, which allows parents also to work with students at home.
So the cognitive tutor software, as indicated in the report, is a support for the algebra students.
Okay, and then I'm sorry, I
That's
thought
okay.
you were trying, the cognitive tutor program supports those students that potentially may have problems in algebra. We have a double period algebra program, and it comes from Carnegie Mellon. It's a well-researched program online that gives a lot of support and hands-on in the area of math. It's been very effective for us.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions then? Okay, thank you.